This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we have found to work best when dealing with teens and tough issues. This is Abbi and Cheree, Let's Talk Teens, episode 91, Teen Choices versus Parent Choices.
Okay, we've been talking about this one a lot and thinking about this a lot Abbi and I were exchanging a few stories about this of how, our teen, they just want to make these choices and they have these things they want to do. And sometimes as parents, we're like, no, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. And we don't like their choices. And so we want their choices to be aligned more with our choices. And that's such a tricky place and such a normal place to be with your teen, where their choices, as a parent, you might not love their choices and you might want to see them make different choices. One of the things I've been helping a lot of my clients with is that every choice that we make either gives us more freedom or less freedom. It restricts our freedom or it expands it, opens doors or closes doors. And that's just the truth about choices. And I think sometimes to just like add this is as parents, I think it's very normal when our children make a choice that we don't love or that could have some consequences, less freedom, restrictive freedom or closed doors for them. We want to be like, no, 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 don't make that choice. And we want to stop them from that choice. Our fear of the consequence, definitely, it's hard not to want to change that for them. But I hope as we talk in this episode, that by the end of this episode, parents, you kind of have this different mentality or different thought process of nothing has gone wrong when your children make a choice you don't agree with or that doesn't align with your values. And that might feel really bad right now. That might feel really uncomfortable to you, and you might really challenge me on that. But let's open and expand our minds of like nothing has gone wrong because choices are all about learning and all about our experience.
I was just thinking of this little drawing that I wish I know in a podcast you can't see this little drawing in my mind, but I've seen it where, we have our little house, and in our little house is our rules and our world. And with our little kids, it's really easy to maintain that little house. But our teens are pushing up against that, and that's their job. That's their biological stage of development that they're at, is to push up against that. And so I'm all about we have our house, and then if we're doing our parenting really well, we have a fence that is clear around our house that our team can then make those choices within that fence and hopefully really protect them and have those guardrails up of, hey, don't go past the fence, right? Which guess what? Sometimes they're going to. And sometimes they're
Yep.
going to make choices outside of that fence that we go, oh, I wish you hadn't have made that choice for these reasons. But if we can offer them those freedoms of choices, even though as a parent, I even get this when my kids are like, I want to buy the blue Slurpee. And I'm like, oh, but I really like the white Slurpee, right? Like, and in my adult brain, I'm like, yeah, but they won't really drink it all. We start that even so young. But if we can keep that, hey, parameter of you can make awesome, healthy choices within this, that can really help too.
I love that analogy. And I think, as your kids get older, I mean, you think about where you're at, Abby, with your kids being younger, those boundaries are probably
They're
a little
very close to
smaller.
the house. Yes,
Yeah, they're
they're like,
very
you
close enough.
won't leave the driveway.
Yeah. And as our children get older, and even as the teens get older, their parameter gets a little bigger, and the yard gets a little bigger. And like you said, they still might leave the fence, right?
Mhm.
And I've talked to a lot of parents that struggle with this, like, okay, I want to let my kids make choices. I know that's healthy for them because it really is how they learn and grow and progress. And they do need to make choices that sometimes um, give them less freedom, right? Because that's how they learn. And yet, like, we want to keep them safe, but how do I show love for them that I love them and I don't love their choices? And, especially when their choices don't align with our values and our belief system of like, okay, how do I let them choose? And I can still choose to not like their choice, but not be like, okay, I don't like them, or that either person has to change their way of their choice, I guess, either their way of reacting to it or their actual choice to do something. neither needed change for there still to be a relationship.
That's so hard, Cheree. I just,
So
that is
hard.
so hard, but it's
It is
so
so hard.
true.
Yeah. And I think this is where like I was coaching a young lady this week and, talking about how like in her relationship, okay, she has this boyfriend. Her parents aren't overly thrilled about her boyfriend. He isn't of their same faith. They don't like how serious she is. There's, a whole lot of things there, right? And so, but she wants to choose to keep dating him, but it's creating a lot of conflict in her parent, well, with her and her parents. And as we were talking about it, she wants to have all this choice to be able to choose who she dates and how much she goes with them and how much he comes to their house. But she doesn't want her parents to be disappointed. She doesn't want them to feel
She
disappointment.
wants it both ways.
She wants it both ways. And so we talked about how like she gets to choose, obviously, like who she dates. Her parents don't really get to choose who she dates. They can choose, they can still have rules and non-negotiables. We've talked about that before of like when she needs to be home or, whether she gets to even go out, but they really can't choose who she likes. But she also can't choose whether they're disappointed in her choice or whether they like her choice. And I think that this is like where we have to get clear is we can't fix it for each other. And as parents, we can still like say, I don't really love this choice, but I love you. And here's some things to think about as you think about this choice. Like, what is it going to look like in the future for you? And, you know, like 1 year from now, 5 years from now, are you going to still like this choice? Or, what are some consequences, good or bad, that can come from this choice? And I think it's learning to talk to our children and ask them questions as they're figuring out their choices.
I love that you are advocating for this um, support and I don't know, instruction might be the word as a parent because I think sometimes people can look at gentle parenting as a term that's very trendy right now and look
Mhm.
at like, oh, okay, Cheree said to let them make their choices, right? But you have to pair that with, in this example, hey, I don't like who my daughter's dating, right? My daughter better 100% know that. And she knows that not because I'm making passive comments, not because I'm like, "Oh, I really wish you would date Johnny down the street," right? But because
Exactly.
we've sat down and I've said, "Hey, daughter, I love that you're dating. I love that you are exploring relationships. Isn't that awesome? And here's some red flags that I'm seeing, right?
Yeah,
And
here's some
hopefully,
concerns.
yeah,
Yeah.
here's some concerns that I have. And here's why I'm worried about this choice. Like, and we are fully transparent. I think parents think they're going to
Mm,
trick their kid into a good decision. But
mm,
sitting down and going, okay, listen, I don't love that he's not a member of our church. And here's why. And our daughter's going to be like, oh, you're so judgy. And be like, yeah, maybe I am. But here's why. I
yeah.
don't love that he talks to you like this. Right. And then
Mm,
maybe share some examples of, I had a friend who her husband talked to them like this, and guess what? They're divorced, right? And so give them some real life facts of where your brain's at. And then they still have to make those choices on their own. But there's no way that daughter in this pretend scenario could go, oh, my mom never told me that this was a bad choice, right? Like when
mm.
she's getting maybe some of the consequences of those choices, whether they're good or bad, that she couldn't go, you know what? My parents never guided me. They didn't let me know that this was a bad choice. Like our youth need to know fully, I know where my parents stand on this, and then they let me make my choice.
Yes. And I love everything you said. And a thought that just popped in my head is, what if we even change the narrative of it's not a bad or a good choice? It's a choice that can create, that could be easier and it could be a choice that creates a lot of pain down the road or that's going to make life a little harder. And so it's not a good or a bad decision as much as it's like, here's again, every choice has a consequence. So you choose to keep dating this person. Maybe you decide to get married, and maybe you still have, this belief in this faith, but he doesn't. Like, let's just talk about some of those consequences of that. What will that look like as you have kids? And so instead of like, that's a bad choice to marry someone outside of your faith, it could be like, this is a choice that might bring some struggles and some hard things, And here's some, pros and here's some cons. And so it's not as much like, okay, that's a bad choice or a good choice, but that's a choice that's going to bring some interesting consequences. The same thing could be like, maybe your son starts drinking. And of course, as a parent, you're not going to like that choice, but you can't follow him around to make sure he doesn't make that choice.
Yeah.
And I think as a parent, we want to be like, that's a bad choice. And I would maybe refrain from saying that and saying something more like, this choice has some consequences that come with it. Here's some problems. Here's some things that could make your life more difficult if you choose to drink, that you might want to consider. And here's some things that if you decided that maybe drinking isn't the best idea, some consequences that could also happen that could be helpful and make your life a little easier. And so it's showing your kids, here's what your choices bring, not you have to choose this because this is the right way.
Well, and it changes our parenting when I go from, I just want to control you and I want you
Mhm.
to do what I think is best to here's I want your life to be amazing and happy and wonderful. And here's the way to do that, right? And not drinking is one of those, right? Because we're
Mhm.
like, hey, I want you to have every option for the future possible. That's a different conversation in my teen of going, listen, I saw you had some beer bottles in the back of your car, or I saw you drinking with your friend, or, and saying, I want you to have options for your future. And I know you want to get into this college, and drinking is going to directly impact that, right? Like we make it valuable to our youth
Yes.
instead of just going, don't you know that's the dumbest thing that you could do? And I thought I raised you better and I'm going to ground you, which guess what? There's probably consequences. There should be consequences of, hey, you're out drinking with your friend, there's consequences. But when it can be a conversation from, I'm trying to control you, to, I'm really worried about where these choices are leading you, that's a really different conversation.
Very. It is really going with like this could close some doors for you. This could make what you want, your goals, not happen. Let's look at that. Just last thought here is I just think I've seen this so often with parents and teens. It's kind of like you're playing tug of war. And parents are saying, okay, like I want them to choose what I want them to choose, and I'm trying to kind of control them or force them with their choices. And I think sometimes teens, and it really is this developmental of like they really are learning, there is some really important things happening in their brain to help them reach their independence. But the more parents try to control their choices, they're pulling on that rope, that tug of war rope, the more the teen might not really want the opposite choice that their parents want, but they don't, they're trying to,
They want to
again,
win the tug of war.
they want to win the tug of war. They want their
Mhm.
independence. And so the teen starts tugging back, not because they really internally want to choose opposite of what their parents are. They don't want to be controlled and they want agency and choice. It's something they fought for a long time ago and is part of the learning and growth of us as humans. It's essential. And so as a parent, I just want you to just kind of consider that. Am I playing tug of war with my teen? And if I let go of the rope a little or lessen it or don't play tug of war with them, will and instead of like just trying to win the argument or control or have them choose the things that feel safer to us as parents, and I approach it more as, okay, what consequences will these choices bring? And is this what your future self wants for you? Or is this going to help you accomplish your goals? Or, like what could the fallout of this choice be? Then I think the teen is actually going to do a lot less pulling against because they want to win the independence because they're going to start looking at it as how is this helpful? How is it, what choice is really going to be helpful for me instead of what choice helps me just feel independent from my parents.
Oh, Cherie. And that's why I am the biggest like believer in give your teen as many choices and options as possible. When parents are starting to dictate whether they're on the tennis team and what they wear and what activities are okay for their teen to do and what are not, like meaning like, can I do tennis? Can I do theater? Can I do football? If mom and dad are like, no, you will do these things because we are a family that does these things,
Mhm.
that is when you get crazy rebellion. That's when you get eating
Yep.
disorders. That's when you get them sneaking off with a boyfriend, girlfriend, because we have to express ourselves as human beings. And as a teenager, 10 times more. And so let's give our youth every creative outlet to do that. Am I going to love that when my teen son wants to grow his hair super long? No, probably not. But guess what? I will take that choice of freedom over a different kind of form of rebellion that could hurt him or his future 1,000 times a day, right? So let your youth pick what they want to wear. Let them have their hair anyway, right? Because to me, I'm like, those choices don't matter in the long run. At some point, all of us get rid of our crazy teenage hair. Um,
Yep, it's true.
but your teen, you could push your teen. If you're doing that tug of war, you got to stop as a parent and really quickly figure out how do I get on my teen's side? That it's not me against my teen and we're doing this tug of war and we're on the same team. And maybe that's letting your teen make choices that you wouldn't. Like maybe they want to quit tennis, but you have forced them to stay in there. Let them quit tennis. Like let that be a choice that they want to make.
Absolutely. And no matter if it's a small one or a big one, it's I love you. And it's okay as a parent to say, I don't love and agree with your choice, but I know that you will, like your choices are yours to like manage and, let them fail, let them succeed. And that is hard as a parent to let go of that control and really let them choose. But remember, no matter what they choose, even as something as serious as alcohol or dating someone they don't like, or even going too far with the opposite sex, of course, as a parent, we're going to be concerned about those. We're not going to like those, but all of those have opportunity for them to learn and grow, even if it is the harder way. Choice is super important.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens with Cheree Murdock and Abbi Winslow. If you are looking for more tips to help your teenager, here's where you can find us. You can find Cheree Murdock on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching or on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find me, Abbi, on Instagram as Abbi Winslow or on my website, AbbiWinslow.com. Please rate and review our podcast and share with a fellow parent. Thanks for listening.